I'm going to start with a confession that might get me roasted in the comments. I walked into a Manhattan society wedding with a billionaire on my arm, and by the time dessert hit the table, the bride's smile had a crack in it. Not because I wanted drama, but because sometimes the truth doesn't ask for permission. If it were you, what would you have done? 2 weeks before that night, I was just a freelancer in a mustard scarf trying to keep coffee off my sketchbooks. Winter had that metallic bite, the kind that makes New York smell like cold pennies, and I ducked into this little cafe in Soho because my fingers had stopped listening to me. The door swung shut, a cup tilted, and every drop of hot coffee chose me and my scarf like it had a grudge. I spun around, ready to apologize, and found myself staring at a face I'd seen on a magazine cover taped to my landlord's file cabinet. Alexander Grant. The finance guy with the grin that says yes follows him around like a well-trained dog. He handed me napkins, calm, almost amused. Not in a mean way, more like he'd just discovered gravity and wanted to see what else would fall. "My fault," he said. No pickup line, no weird vibe, just those curious eyes, the kind people get when they're used to reading rooms and balancing numbers with their bare hands. You know what I mean? That stare that makes you want to either run or stand up straighter. We talked. Not long. Just enough to learn I drew for a living, that he loved steak more than he should, and that our city lived 3 subway stops apart, but on different planets. I was halfway out the door when he called after me. This is going to sound insane, but I have a proposition. That word, proposition, walked right into my brain and put its feet on the table. He told me his ex had mailed him an invitation that felt like a gold knife, Juliet Morrow, marrying a man named Daniel at the Atoria Grand. He said he wasn't going alone. He wanted someone unexpected on his arm. Not a model, not a socialite, not a pawn. His word, not mine. I should have laughed. I should have said good luck and gone home to my leaky 3rd-floor walk-up and the rent notice curling on my counter. Instead, I said, if I do this, we do it my way. Ground rules. I wasn't his girlfriend. I picked what I wore, and I got to have fun. He nodded like he'd been waiting for someone to tell him no. We ran a rehearsal dinner 2 nights later at a steakhouse where the booths are so deep you feel like you're about to confess to a federal crime. He tried to script our backstory, some art gallery meet cute. I said absolutely not. We tell the truth. You spilled coffee on me twice because your brain was chewing on a wedding you didn't want to care about. Our first movie, if anyone asks. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, not Casablanca. We are not auditioning for a museum. He grinned and wrote it down like homework. That was the first moment I saw the man under the money. Smart, stubborn, a little lonely, like he hadn't had a real conversation where nobody wanted anything in a long time. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of my mirror with 2 dresses, black and safe emerald and dangerous. I picked the one that glowed like a traffic light, telling me to go. When the Bentley rolled to the curb, he stepped out in a midnight blue tux that looked like trouble kept its promises. Different from your usual crowd, I said, giving the dress a spin just to hear the fabric breathe. Better, he said, and the way he said it made my shoulders drop an inch, like I had finally put down a heavy bag I forgot I was carrying. The Atoria Grand does not care if you have ever felt out of place. It assumes you belong, which is exactly why you have to. Marble floors that judge your shoes, chandeliers that examine your neck for pearls, waiters who float like swans with perfect posture. The double doors swung open, the string quartet flexed, and the room did that animal thing crowds do when a predator enters. It froze for a breath. Except the eyes didn't land where people expected. They landed on me. I'm not bragging. I just did the only thing I could do if I wanted to survive it. I walked like I had a right to be there. That's the secret nobody tells you. Belonging is mostly posture, mostly a decision you make with your spine. Chin high, shoulders back, a hand on his arm, and a promise to myself that I would not apologize to any room ever again. Whispers followed us like perfume. Who is she? Where is she from? Why her? A Harvard friend with cufflinks that could pay my heat bill cornered us near the champagne, grinning like we were old buddies, and tried to file me in his little mental cabinet donor heiress import. I gave him nothing, a warm hello no bio, and watched him fidget when his favorite measuring stick didn't work. Then the weather changed. Juliet Morrow glided in champagne-colored gown hair, sculpted like it could survive a hurricane, smile polished to a museum shine. Daniel at her side, the kind of smile rich men use, like a hand on your back. If you've been in rooms like this, you know the choreography. We greeted like diplomats, smiling while our eyes threw knives. "I'm so glad you could make it," Juliet said. "You sent me an invitation," Alexander replied. I told her the place was stunning because it was, and her smile tightened by 1 millimeter. "If you think that's nothing, you've never seen a socialite bleed." We floated through conversations like a waltz where the floor keeps shifting. Every few steps, someone asked where I was from. Translation, explain yourself. I gave small truths I draw. I live 3 stops away. I like cartoons with great soundtracks. And I did not add that last week I picked between groceries and paint. Would you have told them everything, or would you have kept your pockets to yourself? I wasn't ashamed, I was selective. There's a difference. When the music drifted toward a slow waltz, he asked if I wanted to dance. I said yes, because I knew she was watching. We didn't cling and we didn't perform. We just moved like 2 people who had agreed to be on the same team for 3 minutes. Sometimes that's all people need to see to decide you belong. The room's attention did a slow pour toward us until the back of my neck got warm. I could feel Juliet's gaze sharp enough to open letters without a knife. Here's where a lot of stories lie and say you can glide through a room like fog and never hit a wall. Real life isn't fog, it's a hallway with doors that lock from the outside. When the toasts began, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had not planned it, I swear. But silence is a kind of permission, and I had run out of permissions to give. The maid of honor cried on cue. The best man told a story that made half the table laugh and forget. The groom looked pleased. The bride sparkled like a sponsorship. Glasses clinked. People exhaled. I stood up. No chair scrape, no theatrics. Just me, an emerald dress, a hand on a thin stem of crystal. Since I'm apparently the only person here who doesn't know the bride and groom personally, I said, "Maybe you'll let me offer the outsider's perspective." A ripple of polite laughter. I told them about the coffee and the scarf, about how strangers stumble into your life and show you something you didn't know you needed. I asked about the part of love when the music stops, when it's just 2 people and a sink full of dishes, a rent check, a hard week. Do you still choose each other then? Do you laugh? Then are you kind then? I raised my glass to the moments that test us, to the choices that define us, to the courage it takes to stand exactly where you want to be, even when the room wants you somewhere else. It should have ended there. It didn't. I set my glass down and the few heads that weren't already pointed our way turned. I don't say that to brag. I say it because rooms have temperatures and someone had just cracked a window. Alexander leaned in and whispered, "You just hijacked the evening." "No," I said, "I redirected it. There's a difference between stealing and telling the truth out loud." Twist coming. During a lull in the dancing, the groom walked over with the smile I mentioned the one men wear when they think the room belongs to them. He said my full name like it was a secret he owned. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again." 5 years hit me like a wave. 7th Street, Philadelphia, a mural job that paid me half of what he promised, and tried to take the rest in a locked office when nobody was looking. I was 20 and stubborn, and I walked out shaking. Some people remember pain as a blur. I remember it like a spreadsheet. Date time, cheap cologne, a doorknob that didn't turn easily from inside. I didn't raise my voice. That would have been a gift. I said, "You underpaid me, and when I wouldn't let you fix it in private. You tried to fix me. You remember that too." His smile flickered like a bad light. Alexander stepped to my side without touching me, which sounds small but isn't. That's what respect looks like when men practice it. Juliet called across the room with a voice like sugar glass. "Darling, can you help me with the gifts?" And he backed away. "If it were you, would you have swallowed it to keep the peace or said it with God and the string quartet listening?" After that, the room turned electric. Whispers sharpened from "who is she" to "what did she just say?" We clapped for their exit like the credits had rolled, and nobody wanted to be caught staring when the lights came up. In the car, the city smeared into gold lines through the window, and Alexander finally asked what he'd been holding back. Was that toast aimed at her or him? Both, I said. She needed to know she isn't untouchable, and he needed to remember the past keeps receipts. Pattern interrupt. By morning, my face was everywhere. Headlines with question marks and adjectives. Mystery woman emerald gown, who is she? And threads that pulled old photos from college shows, a coffee shop where I once worked, even a poem I posted when I was 19 and too dramatic for my own good. My aunt in Georgia left 3 voicemails. "Baby, you are on the news. Call me before I have a heart attack." I turned my phone face down, and it crawled across my table like it wanted to jump. "Do you think that's fair, that strangers can write captions for your life before you even pick a pen?" Alexander called. I didn't want to be part of anyone's PR plan, billionaire or not. He said the smartest thing first. You don't have to talk to anyone. Then the practical thing. If you say one true thing on purpose, it will drown 100 things you never said at all. That's ugly, but it's how attention works. It eats whatever you don't guard. We met at a rooftop bar where the tables are low, and the city looks like it could forgive you. He slid a tablet across with draft statements, not ownership options. I told him I'm not a prop, even if the prop budget is unlimited. He said, and he meant it, that this wasn't about Juliet anymore. It was about the idea that people who have never met you feel entitled to explain you. Men like Daniel bank on that. Rooms like those are built on that. We sat there until the wind made my eyes water, talking about art and money and noise, about how rejection is loud and praise is quiet, and how if you're not careful, you start believing the volume instead of the truth. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. He invited me to dinner, not a restaurant, his building. Grant Tower, 52nd floor, 2-place settings. A private chef who moved like he'd been trained by a librarian. No press, no eyes, no chessboard. He asked me questions that made my guard rattle. Why I stopped showing work, what kind of light my paintings liked, whether I wanted to build something that wouldn't need my face to sell it. Then he did something I still can't decide was selfish or generous. Maybe both. He offered me a job, not as a date, not as a shield, as a consultant for the gallery he wanted to open. Space, budget, impeccable walls, no curation yet. Mine if I wanted it. You know how you can feel your life tilt before it moves? I felt that. I also heard another sound. The click of a trap if I wasn't careful. So I asked the only question that mattered. "What's in it for you?" He said he wanted to see what I would do if the world watched me on purpose instead of by accident. I went home glittered in city light and stayed up until the window admitted it was morning. The next night, I went back. He looked nervous, not the way people look when they're waiting for a yes, but the way people look when they're telling the truth. He told me what the press had started calling me, the wild card. I hated it for 1 second, because I don't like labels. Then I loved it, because they were right. I had walked into a room built like a machine and jammed it with a sentence. He said he brought me to make his ex jealous, honest as a bruise, but the reason he wanted me to stay had nothing to do with her. "You're the only person who hasn't tried to be what I wanted," he said. "You've just been." I said yes to the gallery, not to him, to work, on the record so I wouldn't forget. My terms: no fake dating for the cameras, no performative showings, where I smile on cue, and if anyone asks what we are, we tell the truth. He agreed, which is not nothing, when a man with his kind of money is used to events, not negotiations. We ate dessert very slowly. On my way to the elevator, he said, "I'm glad you crashed my wedding plans." I said, "I'm glad I shocked everyone." Both true. The next day's headlines weren't about Juliet anymore. They were about the woman who said a true thing in a loud room and refused to apologize for how it sounded. Some called me a gold digger. Some called me a hero. I'm neither. I'm a person who remembers. Paint in the cracks of my fingernails, a door that locked from the outside, the exact amount I was shorted, the way a room treats you, when your dress came from a sample sale, not a showroom. If it were you, which headline would you believe? The easy one or the one that requires you to sit with your own reflection? You want to know if Juliet ever found out about Daniel and Philadelphia? I don't know what she knew before. I know what she knows now because truth has a way of turning into light once it gets a little oxygen. Maybe she weighs it against what she wants from her life. Maybe she deflects. Maybe she decides she wants better. That's not my chapter to write. We don't owe every woman a rescue, but we do owe each other the courtesy of pointing to the fire when we see smoke. The gallery. It's happening slowly, because anything real takes longer than a headline. I'm curating work by artists who wouldn't get inside the Atoria Grande unless they were polishing the silver people who make with their hands and don't wait for permission. We're not hanging names. We're hanging truth. Light on canvas steel that remembers home colors that tell you what the block felt like before someone renamed it for a brochure. I don't need high society to clap. I need one girl to stand in front of a painting and exhale because she didn't know she was allowed to take up space until right then. Alexander and I, since you're going to ask, learned how to be in the same room without letting the room tell us who to be. He learned to listen without writing my sentences for me. I learned that you can accept help without handing over the steering wheel. When people ask what we are, he tells the truth. I surprised him. That isn't a relationship status, but it is a beginning. You're waiting for a clean moral. I don't have one. I have this. Power behaves like it was invited even when it wasn't. Money lays down carpets and expects you to wipe your feet. Rooms get built to keep some people out and some people in, and if you're not careful, you start believing the architecture is your fault. The night I raised my glass, I wasn't trying to be brave. I was tired. Tired of being quiet so other people could stay comfortable. Tired of acting like a rumor about me was louder than the truth I owned. So here's my question for you. Do you think it's fair that the people with the microphones also get to write the captions on your life, or are we bringing our own Sharpies from now on? If it were you, would you have stood up or would you have kept the peace because the cake was expensive? And while we're at it, how many second chances do we give a system that pays artists an exposure and then exposes them in the news when they speak? I know what I did. I walked into a wedding and redirected the night. I said the thing I could prove if I had to, and then I left before anyone else could decide what it meant for me. I took a job because I wanted it, not because it looked good on somebody else's arm. And when they called me the wild card, I decided to be the deck. If you made it this far, thank you. Tell me what you would have done in that ballroom. Kept your seat, clinked your glass, called him out by name. Do you think Juliet should have listened? Or is love just choosing the story that hurts least? Drop your take in the comments, argue with me, agree with me, call me naive or tell me I'm right, but tell me. And if you've ever been underpaid, overlooked, or told to smile and say thank you when someone touched your work or your life without permission, I want to hear your story. Share it, own it. Put it right here so somebody else knows they're not crazy. Rate the story 0 to 10. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you want more real stories told like they actually happened. Messy, honest, a little dangerous. Yeah, that happened, and I'd do it again.